The summer heat has really stuck its landing. Today it's 91 degrees outside, but it feels like 99 degrees. And just like with the weather, the real estate market has an actual temperature that you can learn from the stats and a real temperature, what we are feeling in the market. We're going to talk about both of those things today. You're going to learn a little bit about what's going on in the rate world. We're going to talk about price appreciation forecasts, and we're going to deep dive what's happening in Tullahoma. I want to talk to you a little bit about what pricing ratios are. So last week we talked about what month supply means. Today we are going to talk about what a pricing ratio is and why it's important. Jumping in, we're going to quickly touch on rates and then we're going to move into price appreciation. My lender friends are seeing good movement with rates and they forecast to continue to see it as fall approaches. Literally verbatim what my friend Heather sent me the other day whenever I asked her that question. I'm also seeing online that rate projections by these larger organizations like Fannie Mae, MBA, the Mortgage Bankers Association, and NAR, the National Association of Realtors, they are averaging in their projections for quarter 3, 6.73, and then for quarter 4, 6.57. So if the last you heard rates were in the 7s, and now you're hearing this potentially being in the mid 6s, this is going to completely change your affordability. Reach out to a lender, get in touch with an agent, figure out what it is that you could afford if you're interested in moving. As rates drop, people will be coming off of the sidelines into the real estate arena looking for homes, and that's going to drive up some competition. I'll tell you a little bit about inventory once we get further into this video. But as of right now, rates are improving, so keep that in mind as you move through the rest of the year. Let's talk about Tullahoma. These numbers are July over July. I'm glad I accidentally waited a day for this because I got the numbers for July as of today because it's August 1. Last year we had 49 new listings. This year we have 47 new listings. Not a whole lot of change. I would consider that negligible. New under contract. We are actually up pretty significantly this time versus last year. We're up by 34%, 47 this year, 35 last year. Active inventory. This is probably the most exciting, startling number of all of them. Startling. I'm not trying to fearmonger. July 2024, we have 113 homes on the market available right now. Last year, we had 70. Let that sink in for just a second. 70 last year, 113 active this year right now on the market. Looking over the last 3 years here, I don't have this printed. Over the last 3 years, you can see this trend line. The last time we were this high was in November of 2022, which makes a lot of sense because in the summer you have typically more buyers, and then during the fall, winter, while the market is still good, it is a lot slower. It's the school year. So our calendar is typically cyclical with the school calendar. So the last time we had this much inventory was November of 2022. And what happened? We sold that inventory and we ended up with less inventory as the spring and summer came around. The anomaly on this one is that this little guy right here, this is December of last year. And so we had 111 homes on the market at that time. And then we dip down a little bit, right, as we're going into the year. This is April. And then we start trending upward. And we are in July, and now we have the same amount of inventory that we had typically in our slower seasons, November and December of the prior years. So our inventory is higher than last year. Our buyer closings, our buyer activity is remaining relatively steady. That reflects in our month supply number, which is 4.87. That's up 47%. Last year versus this year. Last year we were at 3.31. And remember, that number is how long it would take for our inventory to be completely depleted based off of the amount of buyer activity as of the calculation date. Looking at those numbers and hearing what the national experts are saying, these two things are in alignment even for our small tertiary market. We're seeing experts forecasting moderation over the next 5 years rather than just a complete free fall in prices. Now, there are going to be people on the market that have their homes listed that are going to get really desperate and then do just like a big price dump so that they can get rid of it and move on. And that's okay. People do that in every market. But overall, what we're seeing is a much slower approach to price appreciation. As we see rates decreasing, home affordability is going to improve, which is going to put more people on the market, depleting that already relatively low inventory even lower. Back to our Tullahoma numbers, our average price point right now is $345,000. It remains relatively steady with last year, which was at $354,000. I still would consider that like stasis, right? It tracks back to what we were saying about price appreciation. Overall, this year, folks are anticipating like 0.8% price appreciation. This totally tracks with that. The year before, July 2022, our average price was $315,000. So it is still higher than what it was historically. Briefly touching on price appreciation, the forecasting right now from 7 of the big organizations that predict these things, the average of the 7 is 2.9%, which really 3 to 4% per year is pretty healthy. And that is the average. The highest estimate was Fannie Mae saying that we were going to appreciate in value 4.8%. The two Debbie Downers were Zillow and Freddie Mac saying that we were only going to appreciate in value 0.5 or 0.6% year over year. Finally, we're going to talk about pricing ratios, and I have a graph. Naturally. So a pricing ratio compares the home's final sales price to either the original list price or the price that it was listed at the time that it went under contract. So I've got two different lines here. And I think both of them are really important whenever we're talking about this, especially as you move past 2022. So prior to October of 2022, can we say rate hike? Anybody? I love it whenever we see things happening on charts that we're feeling in the market. Anyway, back in 2021, you're seeing like really tight margins up here. You list a home for $100,000 and you're getting $101,000 for it. Very rarely did we see price drops during that time. Typically, we were seeing, again, things selling for above what we listed it for, even if what we listed it for was trending a little bit higher than what historical comps were showing us. Everything that we do as far as pricing goes is predicting the future based off of past sales. This is why all of these numbers are so important whenever you're looking at putting your home on the market and listing it at the right price. So as you move on, you see that we get to October of 2022. This number is 92%. And what this is saying is that homes were selling for 92% of what they were originally listed for. So again, $100,000 house, you were doing some price drops in order to get it sold, but ultimately you sold it for 92% of that original value. So $92,000 on that home that you had listed for $100,000. That's a pretty significant dip. And as you see, we're trending forward. We're still seeing that people are overpricing their houses and they are selling them for less than what they priced them for. Here I have a list of just solds in Tullahoma, and you got two unique groups. You have people who priced their home on target, and they ended up getting roughly 100% of what they asked for whenever they listed their house. I have those in asterisks over here. And then you have folks who listed pretty high and then had to do a series of price drops or eventually just sold it for significantly less. The biggest difference between those two groups is that the people with the asterisks, the one who sold for roughly 100% of their original list price, their days on market is like less than 18 across the board. And anybody who chose to list significantly higher, they were sitting on the market for upwards of, I think one of these is like 205 days. 117, 28, 26, 94, 98, 51, 48. Our average days on market right now is 33. So if your home's been sitting on the market for longer than 33 days and you're not getting any activity on it, showings, and then ultimately offers, then likely it's a price problem. Typically, whenever I sit down and have a listing appointment, I will give a range of options for where I think somebody needs to list their house for, 1 through 5. To give away my secrets, usually I want them to land on option 3. Like, there's opportunities for you to stretch this, but I don't think it would be wise. There are opportunities for you to get a really quick sale by selling it a little bit under what I think that the market value is. And then there's right at that market value, that sweet spot. 8 times out of 10, I would have sellers say, you know what, we're going for option 5, shooting for the moon. We'll land among the stars. We'll see what happens. And there was a time where we were seeing a lot of showings happening that would eventually get us an offer. Even if it was under ask price, it was an offer. Right now, buyers are so specific about what it is that they need and the price point that they want to stay in, that if you are pricing yourself $15,000 to $20,000 above what the average person could buy, above market value, not even giving your home the opportunity to be in the running. You can't play ball if the team doesn't show up. It's important for your agent to be doing a lot of research whenever it comes to how to price your home, but it's also important for sellers to realize we are not magicians. We have a lot of facts and they don't really care about your feelings or how much money you want out of the house. This is what you realistically can get out of the house. And just as you have the opportunity to interview different agents, agents are doing the same with their sellers. And I have noticed that agents are becoming a little bit more picky about who they work for whenever sellers are involved. I remember a time back in 2021 where agents were picky about the buyers they were working with. If the buyer was only ever going to make offers $30,000 under the list price when we were in a market that people were offering $70,000 over list price, it's a complete waste of my time as an agent. So I'm putting time in whenever it comes to buyers, gas dollars. Whenever it comes to listings, there's a lot of money that comes out on the front end. We're getting measurements, we're getting pictures, we're getting great quality videos, we're putting ads behind your listings. So when you've invested $1,200, sometimes $1,500 into a listing, and the seller is insistent that you have to sell it for $70,000 above what the market is telling us, it's not a great business move for us. I hope that when you hear an agent say, I understand that you want that much for your house, this is what the market is telling us it's going to do, and realistically, this is what you're going to get. That you can appreciate and understand where they're coming from as a local market expert and as somebody who's trying to make sound business decisions. So this one really was a fun one. I cannot wait to see over time what our trends look like as far as pricing ratios go. If we start tightening that margin up, if people start seeing that where they list their home, what price they list their home for, matters. If you've got any questions about what's happening in the market, let me know. I love all the data. I have, like, this is my giant stack of data. That doesn't even include all the tabs I have open on my computer. If you have any questions about what's happening in the market, give me a call. I typically work in southern Middle Tennessee, but I grew up in Rutherford County, Murfreesboro area, so sometimes I will work my way up into that space as well. I would love to hear how you feel the market is going. Are you on the market? Have you been experiencing some of these things? What is your feels like temperature of the market?